On death row, a man was asked his final wish before execution. He didn't ask for a meal, a luxury, or even forgiveness. Instead, his voice broke as he whispered, "I just want to see my dog." What followed next changed not just his life, but the world's perception. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The prison was silent except for the distant echo of heavy doors slamming shut. In a small, dimly lit cell sat a man in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists chained, his gaze fixed on the cold concrete floor. He had been on death row for years, counting days that blurred together. Once defiant, he was now a shadow of himself, haunted by mistakes, regrets, and faces he could never forget. The walls felt like they whispered his crimes back to him each night. With execution drawing near, he waited quietly, burdened by guilt and the inevitability of his fate. When the guards entered his cell, their voices were steady but cautious. "It's time," one said. "The warden wants to know your final request." Most inmates asked for steak dinners, sweet desserts, or one last cigarette. But this man simply looked up, his eyes hollow yet oddly calm. "I don't want food," he murmured. "I don't want anything for myself. I just want to see my dog. One last time." The words stunned the guards. They exchanged glances, unsure if he was serious. A dog? Of all things. Whispers spread quickly through the prison. Some officers scoffed, others frowned. It wasn't a typical request, and granting it would require bending rules. Yet something in his voice carried weight, a desperation that couldn't be ignored. For the first time in years, the man wasn't asking for mercy for himself, but for a chance to hold on to love. After hours of debate, the warden made a rare decision. Permission was granted. Calls were made, arrangements set, and by the following afternoon, the prison yard held an unusual sight. A patrol car pulled up, not carrying a prisoner, but a German shepherd with soft brown eyes and a wagging tail. The dog, named Duke, had been living with a foster family ever since his owner's arrest. Now, escorted by two officers, he padded cautiously across the concrete floor, his nails clicking with each step. His ears twitched, nose working overtime as if he already sensed where he was going. Inside the visitation hall, the man sat shackled, staring at the doors. His breath caught the moment they swung open. Duke froze for half a heartbeat, then bolted forward, dragging the leash from the officer's hands. The dog's bark echoed like thunder, filled with recognition and longing. The prisoner's eyes welled with tears as his loyal companion leapt into his lap, pressing against him as if no time had passed. The sterile prison walls seemed to melt away. For a brief, impossible moment, there were no chains, no crimes, just a man and his dog, reunited against all odds. The room fell silent as Duke pressed his head firmly against his owner's chest, whining softly. The prisoner, once hardened and stoic, broke down completely. Tears streamed down his face as his shackled hands trembled, reaching to stroke the familiar fur. "I thought I'd never see you again," he whispered. Duke licked his face, tail wagging wildly, his body vibrating with excitement. Years of separation seemed to vanish in seconds. The bond between them was undeniable, pure, unshaken by time or circumstance. The guards, who had witnessed countless hardened criminals remain emotionless before their final day, stood still, their expressions softening. A few turned their eyes away, unwilling to show how deeply the scene moved them. For the prisoner, the reunion wasn't just about seeing his dog. It was about forgiveness, about remembering that once in his life, he had given and received unconditional love. As Duke nestled beside him, memories long buried began to surface. The prisoner closed his eyes, his mind drifting back to the days before his life spiraled out of control. He remembered Duke as a clumsy puppy, tripping over his own paws, chewing on boots, and curling up by the fireplace on cold nights. Those were the days when laughter filled his small home, when Duke was more than a pet. He was family. He thought of walks through the park, Duke bounding ahead to chase squirrels, always circling back to make sure his owner was still there. Even then, the dog's loyalty was unshakable. But then came the mistakes, the wrong choices, the wrong people, the path that led him here. Through it all, Duke had stayed by his side, offering comfort without judgment. Looking into his dog's eyes now, he saw not condemnation, but love, pure and unwavering. The man's voice cracked as he whispered, "You were the only good thing I ever had, Duke." The room grew heavy with silence. Even the guards knew they weren't just witnessing a reunion. They were witnessing redemption, sparked by the memory of a bond stronger than time or regret. As minutes passed, something began to change in the prisoner's demeanor. The heavy shadow of despair that had clung to him for years seemed to lift. He sat straighter, his voice steadier as he spoke softly to Duke, telling him stories, apologizing for mistakes, promising that in another life, things would have been different. Duke responded with eager barks and wagging tail, pressing his head against his owner's lap, as if to say none of it mattered. To him, this was not a condemned man. This was still his person. The guards, who had braced themselves for a hardened criminal's final day, found themselves unsettled. One whispered, "Look at him. He's not the same man we've guarded all these years." Another nodded, eyes fixed on the pair. For the first time, compassion stirred within the walls of death row. It wasn't just the prisoner who seemed changed. The people around him began questioning the meaning of justice. Could a man who inspired such love in an animal truly be beyond redemption? The air grew thick with unspoken thoughts. In that room, a dog's loyalty was breaking barriers that no court ruling ever could. When the visitation time ended, the guards gently tugged Duke's leash, signaling it was time to go. But Duke didn't move. Instead, he pressed himself harder against his owner, growling low in his throat. The officers tried again, firmer this time, but the dog resisted, his paws scraping against the floor as he fought to stay. Whispers spread among the staff. "He won't leave him," one muttered. The prisoner's eyes filled with tears, clutching Duke as tightly as his shackled hands would allow. The dog's loyalty was so fierce, so unshakable, that even hardened guards hesitated. The warden, watching quietly from the back, was stunned. Never in his career had he seen an animal's devotion this powerful. The dog wasn't just visiting. He was protecting, refusing to let his master face death alone. That single act forced everyone in the room to question everything about what was supposed to come next. The warden couldn't shake what he had witnessed. That night, he replayed the image of Duke refusing to leave, his growls echoing with a loyalty no human courtroom could measure. For years, he had carried out his duty without hesitation, but this time something gnawed at him. Was justice truly being served? Word of the reunion spread quickly, reaching lawyers, reporters, and activists. Headlines read, "Condemned man's last wish reveals loyalty of a dog." Public opinion began to shift, voices demanding a second look at the case. The prisoner's story, once forgotten, was now in the spotlight. For the first time, people wondered if there was more to him than his crimes. Could love this pure exist in someone truly beyond redemption? The warden filed a request for reevaluation, a move almost unheard of. One man's last wish, and one dog's devotion, was forcing the system to pause. Weeks later, the court reconvened. Testimonies were heard, new evidence reviewed, and the story of Duke's unwavering loyalty weighed heavily on everyone present. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. The execution would be stayed, and the prisoner's sentence commuted to life in prison. In the courtroom, a hush fell. The man bowed his head, tears streaming, whispering thanks under his breath. Outside, Duke wagged his tail, waiting patiently. For the prisoner, it wasn't freedom, but it was life. And for Duke, it meant his loyalty had not been in vain. Together, they had changed everything.